Hello everyone, welcome to episode 101 of the Gut Wrench podcast. My name is Mocha. I will be your host this evening, as I am your host every evening, and this week we've got quite a few things to talk about. Now, a lot of you have given me criticisms that I've really taken to heart, and especially going 100 episodes, and for those of you wondering what it is what is he going on about? What's happening? Remember episode 99? You remember episode 98? How they, I think it was 98 and 99. How they, the intro to them was a little bit different. It was a little bit like, oh, change is coming. Oh, look at the change. Oh, how many changes will be made? You know, stuff like that. Well, here's one of them. For instance, even though we will be looking back at other wrestling, that's happened over the years, 2014 comes to mind, 2018 comes to mind, 2009, 2004, even further back as far as, 1999, 1990s. I really don't feel comfortable going further than 1990, honestly, if I'm going to go any further, because I'm going to let you guys know that's just out of my comfort zone. So whenever I tend to get into the Vern Gagne, I think his name is, whenever I tend to get into the, Bob Backlund, the Hulk Hogan in his heyday, not heyday, hang on, Hulk Hogan in his rookie year, Bruno Sammartino, who's, for some reason, it's probably because he's an old man, and, WWE doesn't know how much time that they have with him, so they've sat him down, and then they've had extensive interviews with him. They're like, take us through what happened whenever your family was stuck in, according to him, his family was stuck in Italy in World War II, or he was growing up in Italy, which, if you don't know, World War II, the Allied forces, which happened to be Italy, happened to be one of those countries, if I remember correctly. So Germany occupied it, and for that matter, Germany occupied a whole bunch of other things, or other places is what I should say. I guess I'm getting off topic, and for that matter, I shouldn't be doing that. Those who have given me criticisms, though, I try to take each and every one of them to heart, but I can't listen to everybody. I gotta listen to you to an extent. I gotta listen to what it is that you have to say, but only to an extent. One of the criticisms that I have received in recent weeks is that I talk too much about irrelevant things. And that may or may not be true. What's relevant in the wrestling world, however, is being covered right now by 10, 12, 14, 25, or 50, 500,000 other people. I can't give you a new take on something that you've possibly already heard. Roman Reigns is setting records, and Roman Reigns is doing this, and Roman Reigns is over here doing that. That's great. I'm happy for Roman, and a lot of you seem to think that I don't know what's happening in professional wrestling right now because I don't talk about what's happening modern day. Instead, I want to go back and watch a show that happened in 2003. And the reason that I want to go back and watch a show that happened in 2003 or a pay-per-view that happened in 2001 is because it's a better understanding whenever you compare it to where we were to where we are. It's a better understanding. You have to understand that. Look back at that, take notes like I do every week. You have to basically put pen to paper or type it out. You want to know what mocks me every week? What mocks me every week is my cursor. It blinks and it blinks and it blinks. And sometimes I'll be sitting there and then I'll be like, I'm really not in the mood to write all this down. I'm really not in the mood to, have to just take this to, and then just write down all the moves. And I try to write down the highlights of the match, but I end up writing down the entire match because I find it easier to compose my notes whenever the entire match is down on paper. You guys might have noticed that on episode 99, whenever I did Takeover Brooklyn 3, I noticed that all that I was watching was a beautiful, beautiful highlight. Everything there was just highlighted. For those of you who have stuck around for this long, 6 minutes in, maybe you're here from TikTok. You're here from TikTok because you've seen the advertisement that I made on TikTok with what I can only describe as one of my fans who sent me a certain video, and whenever she sent this to me, I was like, wow, I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to, hit on you or anything, but you're beautiful, And she's like, yeah, thanks, I get that a lot, She's got like the hourglass figure, and there's a song playing in the background, except it's not the traditional way that you would play that song. Think of, hit me with your best shot, doo-doo, doo-doo. Why don't you hit me with your best shot, doo-doo, doo-doo. Fire away. That song, except it's more of a slower tempo. And instead of, hit me with your best shot, it's playing like this. Hit me with your best shot. Why don't you hit me with your best shot? It's really hard to tell what's happening. And emphasis on hard. It's really hard to tell what's happening, especially if you're a man. I'll just go ahead and say, I'll just throw that one out there. It's almost like a gutter ball down a bowling alley. My mind's in the gutter because what she sent me was something that I thought to myself, you know what? I know exactly where this should go. So I'd already done one commercial, so I figured why not do another commercial? And for those of you who missed the first commercial, that's on my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. For those of you who did miss my first commercial, maybe you should go watch that. I'm essentially getting beat up by John Cena, so much to the point to where I'm bleeding profusely because he's beating my ass. Yep, that was the first commercial, and whenever John Cena got done just wailing on me, he was sure to, leave and not come back. The point, of course, that I'm trying to make is that I've been through multiple advertisements. For those of you who don't realize, I'd paid Cameo, which is a website that you can go on, believe it or not. And from that website, for those of you who aren't in the loop as to what you can do on Cameo, you can pay a celebrity to shout you out. And I paid probably somewhere around the ballpark of $600 to $700 for a shout out from one of my favorite, if not my favorite, female wrestlers, and her name is Kristen Statlander. Kristen Statlander. And Chris Statlander has done 3 I want to say 3 shout outs. Well, she did 4, but on the, see, on the third one, she did not read my, like whenever you go to fill these out, you have to send them like a detailed description of what it is that you would like to have, or you can send them a video, but it has to be like 30 seconds or less. So good luck putting all of your requirements into a video or something like that. My point, of course, is that whenever this girl sent me this over Twitter, I was like, you know what? The first thing that came into my mind was, does sex really sell? And the reason that I say that is because what she sent me, you can put 3 Y's in the word sexy. And that's what you're going to get. For those of you who didn't come here from TikTok and you're here on a weekly basis, I'll be sure to link that video in the description below. And I'll be sure to try to finesse my way into explaining that. I want to say to my mother, she's probably going to have to explain that to her father if, he was ever to see it. But anyway, me and her had a nice casual conversation. No, really. We didn't talk about, dicks and pussies all day. We talked about, everything under the sun, from how she was doing to what her schoolwork was like and how exactly... Hang on. Time out. Whenever I say schoolwork, I do mean college. She told me she's 23, okay? So get your mind out the gutter. Whenever you see that video, don't come crying to me saying, "Oh my God, she's some sort of minor." That's not how this works. Okay? That's not how this works. She told me she's 23. I've got the screenshots to prove it. So anyway, what I mean to say is that I really took something and I made something out of nothing. Because whenever I posted that, 5 minutes later I looked at that and it had almost 1,000 listens. Almost 1,000 watches, not listens. Went ahead and I hope that brings some sex appeal to this podcast, and for that matter, that a lot of people go ahead and listen to that, and then they think to themselves, this podcast is pretty good. Maybe I'm going to have to listen every week and see what other beautiful women show up. For those of you wondering what it is that I'm just droning on and on about, I will repeat that. There was a girl who sent me a beautiful video, somewhat of a picturesque promo, if you will. Something like this. There's lights, there's a camera, and I suppose you could say there's some action. And she's doing like these very flirtatious dance moves, and all you can see is like her silhouette. It's kind of like one of those TikTok videos, and I know a lot of you guys have probably seen them. It's where you'll see a girl, and then she'll be like open her legs, and she'll be like a Catholic schoolgirl or something, and then the song will change from "Put your head on my shoulder," and then all of a sudden, and then there will be like a red light behind her. What am I going on about? This week we will not, however, be talking about professional wrestling. I know that that's frustrating for some of you, However, I will give you this. Jim Cornette. Just going to go ahead and throw this out there. You seem to be a fish in a small pond, small river. I'm honestly convinced that people pay him to say what he says, because there's not a chance in hell that he goes around calling fucking Kenny Omega Twinkle Toes for some ungodly reason, because he thinks that, like, Cornette, your glory days are over, you know? When was the last time Jim Cornette was fucking relevant? Let me ask you that. I'm more relevant than he is. And I'm practically a nobody. I love saying that too. I'm a nobody. But you know what's going to happen? Within the flip of a coin, within the drop of a hat, once I build my reputation here within the wrestling community, I'm going to be a somebody. And those of you who mocked me, those of you who've ridiculed me, those of you who've stepped on my toes, so to speak, you're just going to be a nothing. A nothing. Everything that I do has to do with one thing, and that's passion. Because I have a passion for what I do, ladies and gentlemen. And let me tell you something. Let me just bring it down really low for you. I love this business. I love everything about it. I love the fact that I get to wake up in the morning, and I love the fact that I get to be toxic as I want to be 1 minute, and then the next minute I can look you in your eyes and tell you what's going to happen in the wrestling world, or for that matter, what would be predicted to happen in the wrestling world, and why I think it's right, why I think it's wrong, or why I just don't care. Making myself a wrestling dynasty, one block at a time. For those of you wondering, yes, this is much of a just a 30-minute to an hour advertisement about the future of this podcast. Why, though? Haven't we already been through that? Haven't we already done the storytelling elements? Haven't we already discussed the culture of professional wrestling? But it goes much deeper than that. Everything goes deeper than that. For those of you who aren't exactly in tune with the wrestling world, maybe you just don't know what it is that you're hearing. Maybe it's hard to keep up. Maybe you need someone to hold your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to hold any hands. I'm not here, unless you want to be my friend, to make friends. I'm here to make a name for myself. I'm here to make controversy after controversy. I'm here to get people to talk about me in a good way, in a bad way. Much like Chris Jericho once said on his podcast and in his book, Jericho once said that silence is our worst enemy. You know, think about why we don't talk about Kevin Owens anymore. A lot of you probably wonder why we don't talk about Kevin Owens anymore. It's because he's a turd in the toilet of professional wrestling, and I'd rather just forget about him. Because if you ignore a problem long enough, it goes away. I'm under the impression that if that's the logic that I'm using, then eventually he'll go away. He'll fade into obscurity. Someone will uncover something that he's done in the past, and sure enough, his sins will come to light. The only sin that I've seen thus far is, a rather mediocre wrestling career. other than, like, from what I'm told, spitting in the face of the great gorilla monsoon, literally hawking a loogie in the face of the late gorilla monsoon, and also a few road stories with Jim Cornette. Almost said Kevin Garnett. Jim Cornette. Nonetheless, what is it that we talk about on the Gut Wrench podcast each and every week? Well, it's very simple. It's very laid out in full. You see, I don't necessarily have a rhetoric ready every week that I go by. I can't tell you what we're going to watch on the weekly and then tell you where I'm going to be, the 14th of September, the 13th of December, the 8th of January, like I don't know where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing. You see, my life is a little bit like chaos, no order whatsoever. I can practically do anything that I damn well please, practically. I still have a few obligations. I still have a few things, responsibilities. That's the word that I'm looking for. A few responsibilities to take care of each and every week, and I try to get out this show each week, but it's becoming increasingly hard because, of course, I have to sit down, I have to take notes, I have to, write this down, do that, this, that, and the other thing. Review this show, talk about how I felt at the time, But, it's not like I'm not trying. It's not like I'm not on this every week, trying to salvage some sort of, like I said before, wrestling reputation. How do you build a reputation? Out of nothing. Out of nothing. This is funny because now I'm starting to quote the Bible, because in the Bible, God said that you can't make something out of nothing, which is really odd whenever you think about it. This show itself was nothing. 101. That's what episode that we're on right now. But yet, continuously, week by week, I continued to upload, and right now, I have almost 1,000 plays, almost 1,000 listens per week. And I'm just not sure why exactly it would say that in the Bible if you can prove it wrong. I've tried doing things your all's way, is what I was trying to say earlier. And what do I mean by that? Celebrity shout-outs, sure. I got an idea. My first brilliant idea. I thought it was brilliant. I thought for sure I was going to be on Tosh.0 by next week. I'll have John Cena beat me up. That's brilliant. Oh my God, nobody's ever thought of that before. So how do I get John Cena to beat me up? Well, no one can see him, so what do? Went to eBay, rather I went to Walmart. I bought some fake looking blood, and I went ahead and I used my second phone, and I acted as though that I was answering the phone, and upon doing so, I hit the green button, I guess, and I put the phone that I was filming on in front of me, and I went ahead and called the phone, or God damn it. Okay, so no one's calling me or nothing like that. I just act as though that I'm answering my old phone, which doesn't have service, and it wasn't turned on either. But that's not the point. I acted as though that I was answering my old phone, and whenever I picked it up and I said hello, and I was like, yeah, right, like you mean to tell me that he's coming to beat me up? Yeah. And what's he look like, is what I said. And all of a sudden, they said, I acted as though that they had said something like, you can't see him. And I was like, what do you mean you can't see him? Who is he, Casper the frickin' ghost? It was hilarious. It was just, I found it to be hilarious. You know, my humor might be a little bit, desensitized, of course, from what you're all used to or whatever else, and you might be like, oh, that's not funny. It's just a cheap joke. Ooh. But I thought it was funny. I thought that it was original, and for that matter, I thought that it was really something that would capture the minds, capture the audience that I was looking for. Got an idea. John Cena's going to beat me up. Let's try to make it look authentic. So, of course, I go off camera, and I splash myself with, the fake blood looking stuff, and I even go to the left side of the camera, and I say, no, stop, no more, please, I've had enough. And then, of course, I was crawling back to my phone in order to get the perfect shot. I found that I thought that the perfect shot would be something like, the blood dripping off my face, and, me coked in it, practically caked in it from my hands, and then I was just going to lay there almost like lifeless, not breathing, holding my breath for a minute. But some guy walked by. Whenever he did, he thought that he was witnessing something. He's like, he looks at me, almost like staring at me. And then for a second there, he stopped walking, and then he said, hey man, are you in trouble? Something like that. He almost asked me, which way did he go? And I was like, dude, just for a commercial. I said, it's fake blood. Then I got up, I stopped the recording, and then I cropped out the his voice, which was like, if I would have waited maybe 5 minutes for him to walk by, then it would have been a little bit better, but it's okay because I got what I needed. It was maybe 30 seconds into me getting what I considered to be the best shot before he walked up and then said, hey, do you need some help or whatever. For those of you wondering, I'm talking about the first commercial that I shot for my podcast, which bummed. It bombed completely. No one watched it. No one listened to it. No one even thought that, it was a halfway decent, good idea, I guess you could say. What's happening in the wrestling world today, however, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a little bit of a rebound here, just so you know that I understand what's happening in the wrestling world today. CM Punk recently got fired from AEW, but here's the thing. Other people are just going to cover this, or they've already covered it, and now I'm just beating a dead horse. So there's no point in me talking about it because other people already give their opinions on it. Who's going to want to hear my opinion on it, Like I said before, I'm just a nobody. Trying to be a somebody. CM Punk got fired from AEW recently, and now the Twitter world is abuzz, and so is the wrestling community, the wrestling universe. They're wondering if quite frankly, CM Punk would or even could come back to WWE. Now, a lot of people are saying yes, a lot of people are saying no. AJ Styles, for instance, said no, he's not going to be coming back. He said that he would highly doubt that CM Punk would ever come back to the WWE. But given his track record, Punk is somewhat vengeful, you know. He likes to have the last word. But also, according to a lot of people on Twitter, he's also a hypocrite. And I can somewhat see why, but at the same time, it's not really like... It's not John Cena levels of hypocrisy, you know? John Cena swore up and down that he wasn't going to be like The Rock. He's not going to do what it is that The Rock did. The time of need, whenever the WWE Universe, as he called it, needed The Rock Dwayne Johnson, he tipped his cap, went on to Hollywood, never to be seen again. And then he comes back. And yes, he did. He came back in 2003. And, you know, there's always a saying in the wrestling world. And I've meant to end my show with this for the longest time. And now is the perfect time to want to end this show. I'm not ending it right now, don't get me wrong. There's still like 20-some minutes left, 28 and a half minutes maybe. But if I can last that much longer. Anyway, there's always this one consistent thing that they usually say in the WWE, or for that matter, in the wrestling world. Leave them wanting more. So I hope that each and every week that you listen to my podcast, I hope that I leave you wanting more. Because that's exactly what The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, that's exactly what happens whenever he goes to an event. Whenever he goes to like do some sort of TV taping, or for that matter, whenever he goes to TMZ or the red carpet, you know, like the first major break that he had, I feel as though that The Rock, his first major break outside of the WWE, outside of his attempts to get into the NFL, which don't know why he would want to get into the NFL, but that's apparently something that he wanted to do. And now, Dwayne Johnson Jr., not really sure if that's his son or not, but just roll with it for a minute, apparently is a running back for some team in the NFL. Either that or he's some sort of position. So don't quote me as saying running back. I don't watch football. Football is so boring. Oh my God. And especially whenever they go on those fucking tangents that they go on I don't see how people could listen to a podcast wherever it's like, and he ran 3 miles this past week, and it was for charity. And he has 24 yards this year. Can you believe that? 24 yards. Yeah, well, that's impressive, but the guy that he's facing tonight is going to have 12 yards on him, so he better get ready for an ass kicking. Well, 12 yards, I mean, he could make that up in this game right here, and he could possibly stop him from getting more than 12 more yards. How many yards do you think that he'll get? And then there's like a panel of just 6 or 10 guys who are supposed to be like, what are you being paid for, dude? You're sitting down, you're talking about nonsense, you're talking about how many yards that he has, how many field goals that he's hit. Oh my God, he's got 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And like, what's that supposed to mean? What's that entail? Why is that important? Whenever I go through a wrestling match, I don't say, well, he has 6 pinfalls, but he only has 12 submission victories. So I wonder what that entails, unless it's relevant, unless it's going to come up later on the test. As you can see, I'm a little bit flustered about the whole football thing because I can't wrap my head around people who listen to sports podcasts that aren't something that's actually relevant, that's actually fun. You can't tell me that football is fun. There's nothing fun about watching a guy go down a field even. I don't get it. All I'm hearing is cricket noises right now, and it's not because I'm outside behind this church that I usually record by. All I'm hearing is cricket noises because I'm talking about football on a wrestling podcast. I already scared the hose away. You remember that girl that I was telling you about that sent me that delicious TikTok video? My apologies, Peyton. But, she's listening, so let's be honest. Whoa! Ric Flair, am I right? But anyway, what I mean to say is that I'm not trying to dry up 15-mile radius of every vagina within, this church and the next 10 churches down the road. What I'm trying to do is create entertaining content for those of you who have been listening for as long as you have. And whether that's the 6-minute mark of this podcast, whenever I more than likely introduced myself, whether it's the 19-minute mark of this podcast where somewhere around the 17 or 19-minute mark, I told you that I have a burning passion for professional wrestling. Any companies, for that matter, any sort of wrestling matches, we will talk about, we will discuss, we will, for that matter, go down the line, and one by one we will talk about professional wrestling, whether that's hardcore wrestling or whether that's tag team wrestling or whether that's high-flying wrestling, whether that's ground grappling, Greco-Roman style, catch-as-catch-can style of professional wrestling, whether that's Olympic wrestling. Do you understand? This is like the Bubba Gump shrimp thing from fucking Forrest Gump, wherever he's like, you can boil shrimp, fry shrimp, you can eat it with butter on top. And there's just like a montage of this man talking about shrimp, and he never runs out of shit to say, because he's like, you can eat it on a kebab, you can shrimp casserole, shrimp soup. He's just going on and on and on about how much shrimp that he just loves to eat. And that's great. The man's got a passion for shrimp. Wrestling is my shrimp. Ladies and gentlemen, I eat wrestling, I drink wrestling, I sleep, and all I think about is wrestling. I am a wrestling machine. Machine? Let me think about this for a minute. What kind of parts would you need? No. I brought it up. What kind of parts would you need in order to be a wrestling machine? How exactly would that work? Would you have to oil it? Would it take gasoline? Would it take a motor? Wrestling machine. That really doesn't make any sense. People who call themselves a wrestling machine. I get the whole John Cena thing, because, of course, back in OVW, for those of you who don't know, John Cena was known as the prototype. I watched a documentary on Discovery Channel. Yes, believe it or not. You can probably find it on Discovery Plus if you have the subscription for it. But there's probably something on Discovery Plus for everybody. But anyway, what I mean to say is I mean, it's probably on Discovery Plus. I don't even know if it's on Netflix for that matter, but it entails a professional wrestling documentary, and for some reason they've got John Cena there, and I'm not 100% for sure, like, why he's there, but the narrator, by the way, if I remember correctly, is Mike Rowe. And I don't know the name of the documentary, of course I don't, but back when John Cena was in OVW, he was known as the Prototype. And the Prototype talked like this, you know. And John Cena would always make like these robotic noises whenever he would, like, you know, move or do any sort of basic movement. And I don't know how the fuck he did that, or how the fuck that they rigged the synchronization of, like, the just everything worked so well in the end of the documentary that I was watching, because I only caught it on its, like, as the credits were rolling, and then I was like, that's so cool. That's what's John Cena doing on a documentary about professional wrestling? Of course he would be on a documentary about professional wrestling. What does the future hold for the Gut Wrench podcast, ladies and gentlemen? That was the open to this episode. The Gut Wrench podcast will go far. And I'm going to be in the driver's seat of that. Yes, I will post the TikTok video that I earlier mentioned in the description below. For those of you who didn't see my first commercial, however, maybe you want to go give that a watch as well. It's on my YouTube channel, and I will link that in the description below. And for those of you wondering, what was this episode about? Well, it's kind of the culture of the passion that was professional wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mocha. To a lot of you, I just ripped off Paul Heyman. I know it's bothering you so bad that I just stole Paul Heyman's fire, because he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman." But I did sort of the exact opposite. No luster in my voice. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mocha. This has been the Gut Wrench Podcast, episode number 101. Thank you so much for joining me. That's a wrap. Good night, everybody.